Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to perform server-side CRUD operations in the Vue grid using the DataManager options insertUrl, updateUrl, and deleteUrl. I will also show you how to perform all three of these actions in a single method using crudUrl and how to perform batch operations on a server side using batchUrl. Before moving on to the application creation process, make sure you have these things installed in your machine. Let us know Vue CLI, Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio 2019, and compatible browser. Let's move on to the application creation process. I'm going to use ASP.NET Core as backend to save grid data and perform CRUD operations with Vue as a client app. First, I will open an empty project in Visual Studio Code. In the terminal, I type the .NET command to install the ASP.NET Core SPA template. Then I will create an ASP.NET Core project with Vue as a client app using the command .NET new Vue. Once the project is created, install the project dependencies using the command npm install. Now the dependencies have been installed. You can see here under the fetchData.html file where I'm going to replace the codes with the Syncfusion grid. To render the Syncfusion Vue grid in my application, I must install the grid package using the command npm install Syncfusion ej2 Vue grids package. In the fetchData.ts page, I'm going to import the grid plugin from the ej2 Vue grids package and register it using vue.use method. In the fetchData.vue.html page, I will remove the default code. Under the style section, I will import the CDN link for the CSS reference. Then type the grid plugin. Since I'm going to work on editing, I will import the edit and toolbar modules from the Syncfusion Vue grids package and add these modules in the grid array inside the provide object, and then inside the data method, I will define the edit options variable and enable the options allow adding, allow editing, and allow deleting. Next, I will define the toolbar options variable and assign the array of items add, edit, delete, update, and cancel. Now I will navigate to the fetchData.vue.html page and I will assign the edit options to the edit settings property and toolbar options to the toolbar property. Now I need to fetch data from server to render the Vue grid. Let's move on to the home controller. I'm going to define the model class order details. Now I will define the properties over here. First, I will define the order ID property with integer type. In the same way, I will define the customer ID, freight, ship city, and ship country properties. Then I will define an empty constructor order details. I will define another constructor order details with parameters. And within this constructor, I am assigning those parameter values to the appropriate fields declared over here. Let me create a list with a name order based on the order details model class. Then I will create a public method getOrderDetails and define the data source for the grid by adding a relevant data to each of its fields. Here I'm going to use a for loop to generate order details randomly and return the records through the order variable. I define the method URL data source to get a single parameter of the format DataManager from the Syncfusion EJ2 base package. To retrieve data using this format, I need to install the Syncfusion core package. Once the package is added, I will include the namespace syncfusion.ej2.base. Here, I will access the getOrderDetails method from the OrderDetails model class and then generate the result. Now, I will define the additional conditions to generate the result in JSON format and return the result with count. Moving on to the fetchData.ts page, I'm going to use a data manager to load data in the Vue grid. To start using the Syncfusion data manager, first I need to import it from the Syncfusion EJ2 data package. Under the data method of the script section, I will declare the data variable and then create an instance of DataManager. I will define the URL property and call the URL data source method from the home controller. Here, I will specify the adapter type as URL adapter to enable the communication between the grid and data source. Now, I will navigate to the fetchData.vue.html page and assign a data variable to the data source property of the grid. Now, define the eColumns directive to display specific columns in the Vue grid. Notice here, I have enabled the isPrimaryKey property on order ID field in order to perform CRUD operations. By default, the sample will run in production mode, so I will set up the environment to development mode in the terminal. The ASP.NET Core Framework has a camel case issue while serializing the JSON from version 1.0. Open the startup.cs file. Within this configure service, I have assigned a value to the contract resolver of a serializer settings. Now, let me run this example and show you the output. I will build the sample using the command .NET build. Then run the sample using the command .NET run. Now you can see here the grid is rendered based on the server data. Now let's see how to perform CRUD operations on the server side one by one. To handle insertion, include insertUrl in the fetchData.ts page under the DataManager instance. I will define the server-side insert action method from home controller. Navigate to the home controller, create the insert method and pass the parameter value which is of type CRUD model. CRUD model is a built-in class from the EJ2 base package. I have used it here to retrieve and handle the values that are passed from the client side during CRUD operations. Within this method, I will access the getOrderDetails method from the OrderDetails model class and then insert the new records based on the retrieved parameter value and then return the result in JSON format. To demonstrate this example, I have added a C# debugger extension in my VS Code. Let me add a breakpoint on this method. Open the debugger and then start debugging. You can see the grid rendered in the Chrome browser. I will add a new record with some example data and save it. Let me show you the record details retrieved in the value argument now. Here you can see the action type as insert and the newly added record details. To handle the updating, navigate to the fetchData.ts page and define the updateUrl under the DataManager instance. I will define the server-side update action from the Home controller. I will navigate to the Home controller, create the method update and pass the parameter value which is of type CRUD model. Within this method, I will retrieve the modified record from the data source that matches the ID value from the received value parameter. Then I will assign the modified data to each field of the retrieved record using the primary key column order ID. And finally, return the result in JSON format. See here, while updating the record, the breakpoint will hit at the update method from the Home controller. Notice here, the value argument contains the updated record details. Now, I will show you how to handle a delete operation. In the fetchData.ts file, I will define the removeUrl under the DataManager instance and define the action method delete from the Home controller. In the Home controller, I define the method delete with a value argument of type CRUD model. Within this method, I will access the getOrderDetails method from the OrderDetails model class and then remove the records based on the received primary key value from the parameter value. Now I will add a breakpoint here. When I delete a record on the view grid, the breakpoint will hit the delete method. Notice here, the primary key value is shown in the value argument. You can see the changes in the view grid records. Let me open the network tab and show you the details. You can see the response from insert, update and delete methods. I can also perform these operations in a single method with the help of crudUrl. Here, I will comment out the update, insert and delete methods. I will define a new method, crudAction, with the value argument of type CRUD model. Based on the action type retrieved on the value argument, I can differentiate among the insert, update and delete actions, and I will process the result. Just copy paste the insert, update and delete code snippets inside the respective conditions. Now I will move to the fetchData.ts page, comment out other properties and define crudUrl with crudAction method and show you what happens when you modify the record. You can see the arguments contain an action variable with the type of CRUD action performed and the modified record details over here. In the same way, we can perform batch operations on the server side. Just rename the CRUD action method to batch update over here. Usually, the arguments added, changed and deleted defined within this CRUD model will be used during batch editing to check the current actions on the grid records. Process the retrieved record based on the action performed. Now, navigate to the fetchData.ts page. I will define the batchUrl with this method inside DataManager instance. Also, I will set the mode as batch inside edit options. Now, I will start debugging. I will edit multiple records over here and the breakpoint will hit on the batch update method when an update button from the toolbar is clicked. Here, you can get the action type and modified record details with a separate list for added, changed and deleted actions and update the records based on the list for added, changed and deleted actions from arguments. Now, let me quickly summarize what we have seen so far. I have shown you how to perform CRUD operations in Vue Grid using the DataManager options URL, updateUrl, insertUrl, removeUrl, and crudUrl. I have also shown you how to perform batch operations in a grid using batchUrl from the Data Manager. You can check our user guide documentation link provided in the below description to learn more about server-side CRUD operations in our Syncfusion Vue Grid. Please post your comments below if you need additional information about any grid topic. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this video useful, give it a like and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos. Thank you.